All right, let's just jump right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to tackle a really bold, honestly almost unbelievable premise. What if I told you that you possess the absolute power to control your own destiny? And yes, even your own wealth. And what if the only tool you actually needed to pull this off was just the invisible, intangible impulses of your own thoughts? I know, it sounds a little bit like magic, but take a second to really digest that idea. We spend our whole lives looking for external solutions, right? But today, we're unpacking a meticulously researched framework that suggests our thoughts are literally things. And not just things, but incredibly powerful forces when you mix them with absolute clarity of purpose.
Listen to this famous line from the poet William Ernest Henley. "I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul." It's a beautiful, stirring piece of poetry for sure. But for us today, it's actually the perfect cold open. We are the masters of our fate specifically because we have the power to control what we think about. We're decoding a seriously mind-bending reality here, a secret formula originally passed down by the legendary industrialist Andrew Carnegie.
To ground us in the source material, we're diving into the classic 1937 text, Think and Grow Rich. Now, I really want to emphasize the sheer scale of this work. This isn't just some motivational fluff thrown together over a long weekend. The author spent 25 years, a literal quarter of a century, analyzing over 500 of the most successful individuals in American history. We're talking absolute titans, people like Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, and Andrew Carnegie himself. The philosophy we're breaking down was distilled directly from their documented real-world achievements. These were folks who started from absolute scratch, with nothing to give in exchange for their riches, except their thoughts, their ideas, and their highly organized plans. So, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the true secret to success, move into cultivating a burning desire, break down the 6 steps to riches, explore overcoming the impossible, and finish up with developing unshakable faith. Let's get to it!
Our first major concept today is cultivating a burning desire, which is truly the starting point of all achievement.
To really get what this burning desire looks like, I want you to picture a man named Edwin C. Barnes. Over 30 years ago, Barnes hopped off a freight train in West Orange, New Jersey. Now, look at his physical situation. He had zero money, absolutely no influence, and he honestly looked like a tramp. He literally couldn't even afford a proper passenger ticket. But if you could look inside his head, at his mental state, the guy was a king. He had this singular, all-consuming obsession. He wanted to go into business with the great inventor Thomas Edison. Notice the phrasing there. He didn't want to work for Edison, he wanted to partner with him. He was willing to burn every single bridge behind him, leaving absolutely no path for retreat. And because those massive mental resources so completely outshone his physical lack, he eventually forced Edison to give him that exact partnership.
Now, let's flip the coin and look at a pretty heartbreaking story of failure. Imagine a man named R.U. Darby. He gets caught up in the gold rush fever, stakes a claim, mines some gold, and things are looking fantastic. But then, the vein just completely disappears. He digs and digs, but nothing. He gets so frustrated he finally just throws his hands up, quits, and sells all his heavy machinery to a local junkman for absolute pennies. Well, that junkman was pretty savvy. He hired a mining engineer, ran some quick calculations, and guess what? They found the gold vein exactly 3 feet from where Darby had stopped drilling. Just 3 feet! I mean, the emotional devastation of losing a massive fortune when you're 3 feet from the finish line? Hard to even fathom. But Darby took that crushing lesson and pivoted. He applied it to building a massive life insurance empire, and his personal motto became, "I stopped 3 feet from gold, but I will never stop because men say no." He figured out the hard way that a temporary defeat is not a failure unless you actually quit.
To really drive home just how forceful this kind of desire can be, consider the famous story of the 50-cent piece. Darby had an uncle with a notoriously terrifying temper. One day, the young child of a tenant farmer walks right into the uncle's mill, stands there, and says, "My mammy say send her 50 cents. Well, the uncle absolutely erupts. He screams, grabs a barrel stave, and threatens the little girl, demanding she leave right that second. Most grown adults would have run for the hills, but this child, she didn't budge a single inch. She stepped forward, looked right up at this towering, angry adult, and screamed back, "My mammy's gotta have that 50 cents. The uncle literally froze. He dropped the piece of wood, reached into his pocket, and handed over the money. He was completely conquered by her unyielding determination. That right there, that is the irresistible, undeniable power of absolute, definitive desire.
So, how do we actually harness that kind of immense power for ourselves? That brings us to Section 2, the 6 steps to riches, which is the exact method for transmuting desire into reality. I'm going to hand you the exact personalized blueprint Andrew Carnegie used to turn mere thoughts into vast fortunes. Here's how it breaks down. First, fix in your mind the exact amount of money you want. Don't just say, I want to be rich. Be completely definite down to the dollar. Second, figure out exactly what you intend to give in return, because let's be real, there is no such thing as something for nothing. Third, establish a definite date. When do you intend to possess this money? Give yourself a hard deadline. Fourth, create a specific plan for carrying out your desire and begin immediately. Ready or not, you put that plan into action. Fifth, write all of this out in a clear, concise statement on paper. And sixth, listen closely, because this is where the psychological magic happens. Read this written statement out loud twice a day. Read it once in the morning and once right before bed. As you read it, you have to actively see, feel, and believe you already have the money. Your mind has to get completely saturated with the reality of it.
Now, obviously, when you start doing this, you're going to hit roadblocks. Which brings us to Section 3, Overcoming the Impossible, and why practical dreamers never quit. Let's look at Henry Ford for proof of this. Ford made a massive sweeping decision. He wanted to produce his now famous V8 motor by casting an 8-cylinder engine block in one single solid piece. He gave the orders to his engineers. Now keep in mind, these were brilliant, highly educated experts, and they unanimously came back and basically said, Mr. Ford, it is physically impossible to cast that in one piece. 6 months go by, nothing. Another 6 months, still nothing. The experts keep insisting it cannot be done. But Ford, he wasn't having it. He just said, go right ahead, I want it, and I'll have it. His stubborn, unyielding determination kept those engineers grinding until, almost miraculously, they finally discovered the secret of how to do it. Ford didn't succeed because he was the best engineer. He succeeded because he knew exactly what he wanted and flat out refused to accept the word impossible.
And this concept goes way beyond business. There's a deeply emotional application here too. The source material shares the story of the author's own son Blair. Blair was born without physical ears. Naturally, all the medical experts said he'd be completely deaf and mute his entire life. But his father made an incredibly profound choice. He refused to accept that limitation for his kid. Think about how wild that is. Against all medical logic, he systematically implanted a burning desire for normal hearing into his son's mind. He used daily stories, relentless encouragement, and unwavering belief. He mixed pure faith with this desire. And incredibly, over time, the boy's brain actually bridged the gulf of silence. Nature adapted. Eventually, Blair found a newly invented hearing device that just happened to work perfectly for his unique physiology, and he completely converted his greatest physical handicap into a lifelong asset. So how in the world do you maintain that level of burning desire through insane adversity without just totally burning out? That's Section 4, Developing Unshakable Faith, the head chemist of the mind. Listen, faith in this context isn't some mystical, abstract concept. It's actually a highly practical, scientific state of mind. It's induced by affirming and repeatedly instructing your subconscious mind. It's called autosuggestion, and you can voluntarily develop it. When you continually repeat your desires to your subconscious, and you do it with real, raw emotion and belief, your mind eventually accepts it as an absolute fact. And once your subconscious accepts it, it immediately gets to work translating that thought into physical action and real-world opportunity. It's literally like a muscle. You only get this kind of faith through deliberate, daily practice. But we do need to extract a huge warning from the source text here. Your subconscious mind does not discriminate. It is totally impartial. It will translate negative, destructive thoughts into reality just as efficiently as positive ones. If you're always dwelling on your failures, your lack of money, your doubts, well, your subconscious is going to act on those exact instructions. You'll essentially be manifesting your own bad luck. You have to actively choose to believe that every single failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent success. You are the gatekeeper. You have to feed your brain positive instructions because it's going to build your reality out of whatever building blocks you give it. Which leaves us with one final, pretty provocative thought. After a quarter-century of studying the absolute most successful people on Earth, our source text insists that our only limitations are the ones we set up in our own minds. So I have to ask you, are your limitations simply a reality you've chosen to accept? It might be time to stop accepting those self-imposed boundaries. Take the steps we talked about today, apply Carnegie's secret, and start mastering your own fate. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Now get out there and build that burning desire.